What's up, guys? I hope you all are doing well. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to another YouTube video. In this video, we are looking at part 12 of our Pandas tutorial series, in which we explore the Pandas package in Python programming language. So, guys, in this video, right, if you have been following along, you'd know that in the previous video, we got introduced to the concept of, you guys know, input and output. Okay, so input slash output. Now, for this video, we're just going to continue exploring the various techniques, that we can employ when working with our data and data sets themselves. So just to take the easy way out, I'm just running the entire script here, so I get transported or transferred to the folder that is actually being used. So the script itself yielded a an error. Okay, so that's nothing to stress about. It's yielded an error because as you guys see, it's reading clipboard, but no, that's fine. That was us exploring during the demonstration in the previous video. Anyway, so let me clear the console here. Now, you guys know you have this example file 2.csv created if you have been following along with this tutorial series, because this is exactly what we will utilize now, okay, to explore more concepts. So first things first, guys, go ahead, import pandas as PD for me and work now with me. Now you see, you guys know in the real world when we deal with data, right, the text files that we work with, it's gonna have several lines of data in it. Okay, the data set is not going to be a small size or small scale data set. Now it is for this or these reasons, you see, when we process very large files, okay, it is very difficult to figure out the right set of arguments that's going to help us to correctly process a large file. Okay, what I mean by this is, if we want to view, what if we want to view a portion of this large file? Okay, what are our options with pandas with regards to processing this large file? So the first thing I'd like to show you, and this is a new concept, one that you will see for the first time, if this is your first time dealing with pandas. We are calling this, now we are experimenting or doing reading files in pieces. That's the title, or that's the name of this operation, reading text files in pieces. Okay, for this I will utilize example file 2.csv. So go ahead, set up a data frame object. Actually, no, before we even do that, you see, guys, there are several built-in methods and parameters that we can play around with as part of pandas package itself. Okay, one of this very interesting methods, or you can call it functions or features, is what's called the pd.options.display. Now this is the important kind of object that we are referencing, pd.options.display. Now if I do this in the console so you guys can see the autofill, pd.options. And if you press tab, you see there's a lot of different styles and settings that you can actually mess around with pertaining to pandas. And what we are doing now is we are trying to mess around with the display settings of pandas itself. And if you guys see, there's a lot of settings that you can mess around with. Now for this, what I want to bring your attention to is max rows. This little method here, okay, pd.options.maxRows, this is what allows us to actually kind of read a text file in pieces. Okay, what I'm saying is, when we're looking at a large file, we'll make the pandas display settings much more streamlined, sophisticated, compact. Okay, let's set this to 3, and we are working with example file 2.csv. So let us do that. Actually, I will set it to 4. Now go ahead guys, create a data frame object, read in example file 2.csv. Let me copy the absolute path of this file. Okay, that should be good. And now print data frame. Okay, so when I run this, you guys see, look at the behavior of the pd.options.display.maxRows method. Okay, it allows us now, under normal situations or under normal circumstances, if I did not have this. So let me comment this out, and now I'm printing the data frame that has just been read. You guys can see, so it is still the same because of the fact that we have just, messed around with the data frame itself. But under normal situations or under normal circumstances, what would have happened is that, I would have obtained the entire data frame, in the console. And suppose our data frame had 1,000 rows or 10,000 rows in it, I would be shown a limited number of those rows. And that is what the pd.options.display.maxRows method does for us. You guys see, it gives us 2 columns from the top and 2 from the bottom. Everything else in between is shown as these little ellipsis dots. Okay, so just to show you even more, so if I set this to 3, you guys see it displays only 1 from the top and 1 from the bottom. If I set this to 5, it shows me 2 from the top and 2 from the bottom. So you guys get the idea of how this works. Okay, it attempts to split the rows it shows on the top of the data frame, and at the bottom of the data frame it tries to keep that, the same. So I'm leaving this as 3 since we have a small data frame that we are working with. Actually 4, right? So that's the first interesting thing I wanted to show you guys for this cell of code here. The next thing is also quite cool. So go ahead, create data frame 2. Actually, you guys can just, copy paste the line of code above and change data frame object to data frame 2. Now, what I'm showing you is another parameter, part of the read CSV method itself. Now, if you only want to read a certain number of rows from the file itself, okay, then what you're gonna have to do is utilize the n rows parameter. N rows, that's the name of the parameter. You have the ability to pass an integer to this to this parameter as an argument, and it's used in situations where you want to avoid reading the entire file in your system RAM. Okay, so suppose the file you have has maybe 100 or 1,000 rows, and you only want to look at maybe 10 of those rows. So this is what you do. N rows is equals to and the number. So I'm doing 3. N rows is equals to 3. You guys see by default it's set to none, because what happens is that the entire file gets read in by default. So print data frame 2, and as you guys see, it gives us that. Now n rows, just in case you are wondering, it will pull the rows, the x number of rows that you want, and it basically goes from top to bottom, right? So by 3 rows we mean 1 and then 2 and 3, so it goes in order from top to bottom. If I set this to 5, it will only print out the 5 rows that we want. Now the reason as to why the whole data frame is not showing is because we have altered the pd.options.display.maxRows, and you guys know what we did there. So feel free to play around with that. What I'll do is I'll just set the max rows to be equals to maybe 1,000. Okay, so we have the full data frame that's being printed out to our screen. Now that's fine. What I'd like to show you now is how we also, this is now all of these that I'm showing you, it is falling under the category or concept of reading the file in pieces. Okay, you kind of buffer the reading of the file instead of just overwhelming your system RAM and crashing your device. Okay, so data frame 3 is equals to pd dot read csv. So I should have just copy pasted. You guys can copy paste. Essentially, I am showing you another parameter now. Now, this parameter is arguably one of the most, powerful parameters that are used when actually reading any file in pieces. Okay, it allows you to kind of buffer the reading of the file. Okay, essentially, what's going to happen is that we have this argument called chunk size, as you guys will see there. Now, chunk size also needs to be provided an argument of integer data type. Now, you see the difference between the n rows and the chunk size. Chunk size is going to read your entire data frame in memory, but it does this in such a way that it actually saves memory, so it reads it in the chunks that you provide. But the important thing is that the whole data frame gets read, but in chunks, whereas in n rows the entire data frame does not get read. Only a certain x number of rows from top to bottom will get read into system memory. So the file that we are working with, right, it has 8 rows. So suppose we'd like to kind of buffer this large file. Suppose, just imagine the file is large, right? We have 8 rows, and we want to work with the file in chunks of 2 rows each. That's where this argument or parameter comes into play. Chunk size is equals to, and I'll give it a value of 2. Right, now what I'd like you to do, I'd actually like you to print data frame 3. Go ahead, print it to the screen. Okay, now this is what we obtain. It's some sort of object that is a text file reader object, and the number you see is basically the location of it in RAM. Now, this is not what we want. We want the data inside that whatever object has been created. It's a parser. Okay, I assume you guys are familiar with parsers. They allow us to kind of skim or browse through, as inferred by the name. It passes through something, it goes through entirely. Anyway, what we have here is actually a chunker object. Now, because of the name of the parameter chunk size, the output of this is actually a chunk object. Okay, and as you guys see, it's a text file reader object. Now, what we have the ability to do, so let me print chunk object. You guys saw chunk object. Now, this little object, right, this text parser object, right, that has been returned by the CSV method, it's gonna allow us to iterate. You guys know what iterate means. It allows us to iterate over the parts of the file, according to the chunk size we specified. So because we have a chunk size of 2, each part of the file that we iterate through is going to have 2 rows in it. If we had a file of 10,000 rows and chunk size was 1,000, each chunk that we iterate through is going to have 1,000 rows in it. Okay, so I hope that makes sense to you. Now, go ahead, guys, follow along with me. I'll comment this print statement out of the way. And what we are doing now is iterating through the data frame itself, or the chunk object. Okay, so let's go ahead, let's do this. Okay, guys, so now what we are going to do is, you see this chunk object that we have just created, we are going to attempt to iterate through it. I want you guys to see exactly what the chunk object looks like. So let me do a simple for loop. We'll say for chunk in chunk object print chunk, and you guys are going to see exactly what we obtain. This is what we obtain. Okay, so we have these little tables, and if you guys pay careful attention, you'll notice that they are indeed showing up in chunks that have 2 rows each. Okay, now if I print type of chunk, you guys will see that every chunk itself is a core data frame. So it's a data frame object that's built into pandas package. So that is what we have. Now, what I'd like to show you next, right, is how we have the ability to actually write data to a textual format. So I mentioned in the beginning of this specific kind of topic that we're dealing with input and output. I mentioned that we are dealing with the reading input output as well as writing input and output. Okay, so what we are doing now is I just want to show you guys the capabilities that Pandas offers us when it comes to writing or exporting data. Okay, so oftentimes when you hear of the word writing, it's alluding or referring to the concept of exporting data. Okay, so that is what we have. Now what I'd like to do to demonstrate, I will use example file.csv, the first CSV file that we created in the earlier lessons of this kind of journey of pandas. So what I'd like to do, import pandas as pd. Now guys, you guys are going to see, you know, the capabilities and the power that pandas offers us. Okay, the reading process is kind of simple. We have gained quite a bit of experience in that agenda. Now it is time for the writing. Okay, now go ahead, view this data frame. I should have commented on what I did. So basically I imported the package, I set up an object data frame. You guys can call yours anything you like, pd.readcsv, and I provided the absolute path to example file.csv, and now I requested that we print data frame to the screen. That is what we obtain. Now what I want to show you, you see, suppose now we have, you know, worked through the entire data frame. We have, you know, addressed all the statistics and analysis that we needed, and now we have this polished data set or table of data, and we are ready to export it or save it to our hard drive. Okay, in situations like that, what you can do is Pandas has a built-in method, and I suggest that you use this method in a sort of interactive shell or console or terminal. Okay, because what this code that we are about to type does is it will write the file to your disk, and instead of having it in your script where every time you run the script or the cell of code, you know, that writing operation is constantly being done, it's better to just do it one time in your interactive shell and get that over and done with. So I'll add the syntax here in a comment because I don't want the code to keep getting executed, but I will show you how it works from the shell itself, from the console. Now the method we are using is basically dot to csv, and we'll pass file path in a string, file path with extension. Now let me demonstrate. You see this data frame that we have here, just to pull it up again for you, it's the exact same thing. This data frame, it is polished. We are ready to save it to the disk on the PC. What we'll do is we'll say data frame dot, and we'll say to underscore, and again you guys can see there's several different formats that you can actually write data to. CSV is just one of them. Okay, you can write it back to the clipboard, to dictionary, you know, Excel, feather files, HTMLs, JSONs, and so on. You know, we have endless options here. I want to show you to CSV. I am passing the file path of, or the file name of, so we have example file 2. Let's be boring and call this example file 3.csv. Please don't forget to pass the extension of your file, guys. The to csv method will basically write a CSV file for you. We know a CSV file is comma separated value. So when I hit enter, you guys are going to see in the file explorer here, example file 3 is going to show up. So let's do that. I hit enter. Okay, so there I hit enter, and here we see example file 3 has shown up. It has a CSV extension. Let's open this file, and as we see, that is what we obtain. So I hope you guys are finding this fascinating and are intrigued by the capabilities of Pandas package in Python, and we are going to just continue exploring more methods and features. So that is what we have there. Now, obviously, I should mention to you that we have the ability to, you see, this file, right? This file, the one that we just wrote to our disk. Let me close the other two. It has commas that separate the values. Okay, now the thing is, guys, we have the ability to actually use other delimiters. You see, commas and so on, whatever character is used to separate one value from the next in all the rows, it is called a delimiter. In our case, in this case here, in a CSV file, comma separated values file, the comma is the delimiter. But we have the ability to make any character that we want the delimiter itself. So allow me to show you this and how it works. So let's go ahead and do this. Go ahead, guys, import a new package called sys, import pandas as well. Sys is built into every Python installation, so you guys don't have to stress about installing. Go ahead and import, and it should work for you. Anyway, let me show you how we have the ability to change the delimiter. Okay, so go ahead, copy the reading that we performed in the previous cell. We'll utilize the same data frame since it is small and convenient for us to work with. Now, what I'm doing is another writing operation, but I want to change the delimiter. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll add the code here. We use the sep parameter to specify a delimiter of our choice. Okay, now that is fine. I'm going to demonstrate. So let me actually put the entire code here. We are going to do data frame dot to CSV. You'll pass the name of the file. So basically what we can do is sys dot, so let's do sys.std out, and we'll do sep is equals to, suppose I want to make the separator the pipe symbol, the vertical line that we see. That's going to be the separator for our data frame, or our data set file rather. Okay, the CSV file. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the same code here in the terminal. So data frame dot to CSV, and what I'll do is sys. So first things first, let me run this, make sure the system package is imported. Now I'll do data frame dot to CSV. Within the bracket I'll do sys.std out, comma, sep is equals to pipe symbol, close bracket. And now when I hit enter, you guys are going to see this is what we obtain. Now you see, in a situation like this, what I did is I just flushed. It did not save the file. Okay, sys.std out, it basically flushes whatever you have out to the console as output. Okay, it does not save the file. Now, the reason as to why I showed you this, or I am showing you this, you may wonder, it is because, you see, oftentimes before people, or data analysts, data scientists, and so on, before they actually want to save the file, They like to view or have insight into what the file would look like once saved. And if we save the file like this, this is what we can expect to be written in the output file. That is the power of the system module combined with stdout. Now, let me go ahead and save this. You are probably waiting to see what the new separator looks like. We'll be boring once again. Example file 4.csv. Now I go ahead and I press enter. And this is what we get. It is as expected, guys, because we saw what output looks like here. Now, that is cool stuff there. Just keep in mind that the system package in Python is very, very powerful. I encourage you to play around with it, and I actually will maybe create a tutorial series around the package itself. So that is what we have there. Now, with regards to the system.stdout method that we just used here, you'll have the ability to use all of the parameters that the 2CSV method supports, right? So go crazy with that. And I told you the only different thing is that the file itself is not going to be saved. It's just going to be shown to you in the console for your convenience and ease of access. So what I'm saying is that if I do sys.stdout, comma, one of the parameters we worked with was sep equals whatever. Now, just to reiterate, you can use any of the parameters that are actually supported by the 2CSV method, okay? And all of the changes or output will be shown in the console. To emphasize, it is not written to the disk. That is when you use the sys, the system.stdout method. Okay, when you provide a string only, that's when the writing operation will be done to the disk. So that's fine. Now, what I'd like to tell you, I'll add this as a comment here. Please remember that all the methods we have just let's say tried on the data frame object will also work on the series object. Okay, so that's very important to know, guys. I am not going to show you the concept or kind of procedure of reading text files in pieces on a series. Okay, I've shown it to you on a data frame, and the procedure is going to be exactly the same. It's just that you are working now with a 1D array in inverted commas instead of a 2D or multi-dimensional object. So that is what we have. Now, what I'd like to show you, so this video we have covered quite a few interesting concepts, mostly pertaining to the concept of handling large data. That is the main goal, that is the main focus. Okay, because in this day and age, you guys will know big data is a kind of popular thing in this day and age, and therefore it is good practice and it is good, gives you the boost and the edge if you know how to efficiently and effectively process and handle large amounts of data using the Pandas package in Python. Okay, so in the next video, I will just proceed to explore more concepts pertaining to Pandas package. We are, I would say, nearing the end of this tutorial series. If I'm not mistaken, this is probably the longest series on the channel, so that is actually a very good milestone for us. And yeah, with regards to the processing of data, as I mentioned before, and I'm saying this again, it all depends on your use, on your job or occupation. Okay, if you're a data scientist or a data analyst, if you're someone who works with big data and Python is one of your tools, Pandas is likely to be your go-to third-party dependency to actually assist you with your work. And you'll have the ability to process JSON, XML, HTML, and so on. And yeah, that's about it. So with that, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for staying till the end of the video. Good luck with your work, and I will see you in the next YouTube video.